there, everyone! Today, we are going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch 1. Not the successor, but in fact the predecessor. And I am joined by Brandon Miracle.
Why, hello!
And Daniel Alba.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
Oh, ho, ho, ho. How long are we going to keep this voice up before we go to our regular voices?
I think now would be a good time to stop.
Okay. So...
If you insist. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Yes, so, sometime before March, the Switch 2 shall be revealed. And we are wondering now what is left for the console that we currently have, Switch 1. So we have around 3 months left before that. But that doesn't mean Switch 1's going to be dead in those 3 months. There's still going to be games releasing in that time and after the next console. So what we're talking about today is what the Switch 1 will still be receiving. And I'm looking at you, Brandon, because I can see that your mind is a lovely place full of thoughts and horrible things too, but mostly thoughts. and I want to know what you think the Switch 1 will still get.
Well, I've been thinking about this since we decided to do this discussion, and I thought 1 in particular seemed like it would make sense, but part of it is just me wanting it to happen, and that's Super Mario Galaxy 2. Still a shame that we don't have that on Switch 1.
Yeah.
I love the version that we got of Super Mario Galaxy 1 in the 3D All-Stars collection. It's just an HD version with gyro support. I mean, it's still not as good as the Wii version because you're losing out on that fine pointer control, but it's still a good enough version that I want it on Switch so that it's accessible.
I mean, you can argue that we don't have Galaxy 1 on Switch, like being sold.
You know, that's also true. Maybe there's a opportunity for them to release it as a standalone.
Yeah.
You know, I could see them putting it up on the eShop for like, well, I would have said $20, but this is Nintendo we're talking about, so you know we're paying that $60 price, maybe $50. But I don't think that the All-Stars games are going to be gone forever. I think they will eventually resurface, just not as a collection.
Okay. I mean, how long ago was All Stars now? That year, was that 2020 or 2021?
I think it was 21.
21. Okay, so it's been it'll be about 4 years come January, which is a long time to not repackage those games. I can still see it happening though, because it's so weird to have done like Sunshine and Galaxy and just say like, go away now.
We're gonna come up on Mario's next like milestone anniversary.
It's
like
40 years, yeah. A bonk just said that in live audience.
Yeah, you can't just keep that in the vault forever. They're running out of Mario games to remaster. Like next would be like New Super Mario Brothers Wii, and that doesn't seem like an appropriate remaster to me.
It's a bit counterproductive considering we already got Wii U Deluxe release for the Switch already, and it's just like they're releasing almost the same game except with, you know, just different worlds with the introduction of multiplayer. But yeah, it's like Galaxy and Sunshine are just the people forgot that they even released on the Switch at this point because it's been so long. I feel like Sunshine is going to be whatever Nanoso GameCube is going to happen. I don't think they're going to like remake or remaster that or anything. But Galaxy is the big omission. There's no Galaxy 1 anymore. Galaxy 2 is like a major one from the Wii era that feels right to just have on Switch. We have the control scheme already without the use of a Wii pointer. And so it's like, where is this title? I don't know. It's a weird omission at this point.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, give us another one. What other game will the Switch one absolutely get?
Oh man, Switch. I mean, we still need that Yoshi's Woolly Fuzzy Baby World. We don't have that on Switch. It's still on the Wii U. People forgot. People are forgetting that this is another great title that is stuck on the Wii U. It's not just Xenoblade, and it's a sad omission. They're gonna release it on Switch, and they're gonna remind themselves, wait, Amiibo can have incredible inflammation on games, and so they're gonna they're going to make it so that in Mario Galaxy 2, you can scan Amiibo, and just like in Odyssey, you can dress up Mario in different costumes. That's what they're going to definitely do in this timeline.
I like that you crossed back to Galaxy. Yeah, I mean,
I just want Galaxy more than anything.
Woolly World is such a good game, though. Like, we had the 3DS version with the Poochie Pups, but it was like, it added more stuff, but it's still compromised because it's not the beautiful Wii U game. So if we could get, Woolly World up to date with the Amiibo costumes, with the Poochie Pups, and whatever else the 3DS version added, it'd be so nice. There are so few people out there that don't think that Woolly World is a better game than Crafted World. Some of those people exist, but so few.
I don't trust them. I don't trust those people. But yeah, you could. This would be Yoshi's Woolly World Deluxe. That's what they're going to call it when it comes out. And add it to your deluxe discussion.
To revise the list. Okay, so in terms of like a brand new game, not a port, I think there's still a good chance of Rhythm Heaven happening. It's the kind of game that does not revolve around a stronger system. It's a 2D game, hand-drawn. There's really no need to wait for another system unless there's like a core rhythmic gimmick in the controller or something. Otherwise, I think this can handle perfectly fine on the Switch. There's a lot of staff crossover between WarioWare, and we've had 2 of those now. I think it just kind of feels time for Rhythm Heaven.
Yeah, I also had this on my list. I also had Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World. But for Rhythm Heaven in particular, I was like, I thought it'd be fun to try and come up with a name for the game. And the first thing that came to mind was Rhythm Heaven Joy.
Oh.
Just playing on Joy-Con, because I imagined that they would probably focus on Joy-Con implementation in some way.
Yeah.
It's a great late system kind of game because, the install base is there. You don't have to worry about risk as much. You can just kind of make the game that you wanted to make, release that, and not worry so much about what happens.
It's also largely been a handheld series up until now. Wii's the only one with a console one, so it hasn't really used Rumble much at all. It's like have like a metronome in the HD Rumble or something, or maybe have some rhythm games that don't even really use visuals at all, and you just have to like feel the beat. I think that there's tons of like new things you can do with this series with the Joy-Con.
Yeah, it's sad that there hasn't been a single Rhythm Heaven for all 8-something years that the Switch has been out for, and especially when it has had its origins in handheld games, and you can just take your Switch anywhere you want to go. That definitely sounds like something that they would have on there at some point. Because like you're saying, it's towards the end of the life cycle of this console. You can kind of just throw whatever you want on there. You can have weird games like Emio just kind of showing up out of nowhere at the end of this Switch's life cycle, and just other remakes and whatnot. But yeah, I would love specifically a new Rhythm Heaven. It's been so long, and the team for WarioWare, as you're saying, they used to just go back and forth between Rhythm Heaven and WarioWare. And now we've kind of just landed on multiple WarioWares in a row. So it just feels right to have this on here.
Yeah. Brandon, give us another one.
Well, I've been thinking. I know we're talking about a lot of ports and remasters. We just had like Luigi's Mansion 2 come to Switch. But there are more games from the 3DS that I'd love to see come over. My dream game is still Kid Icarus Uprising, but I think a more likely game is Metroid Samus Returns.
Ooh, okay.
I think it'll be a while before we get another new 2D Metroid game. We're still waiting on Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. So I think a good stopgap game would be just an HD version of Metroid Samus Returns.
So here's a question. So you're Nintendo, and you have to fill up retail stores with Switch boxes, and Prime 4's coming up. Do you fill those shelves with Samus Returns, or do you fill those shelves with Prime 2 and Prime 3, which tie a bit closer into Prime 4?
I was going to point this out, too.
I also have these on my list.
You're saying all the Metroid, then?
The thing is, I do think Samus Returns is more likely. I don't know if they're gonna do 2 and 3 like right ahead of Metroid Prime 4's launch. I guess that's kind of where my thought process is. It's like, when does Metroid Prime 4 actually come out? And and then how can you space these 3 games out in between them? I think we had Metroid Prime Remastered already, so I think hopping back over to a 2D Metroid would be wise before then going back to 2 and 3. I'm not certain, but I feel like Returns would happen first. Well, what do you think?
They've got a bit of an obsession lately with having like full series on the Switch. Like with Donkey Kong lately, they've been like every Donkey Kong country is on the Switch now. Every Xenoblade is on the Switch. They do this quite a lot. So like it's not really that at that point where it's like one or the other, especially when they're different studios. It would probably be Mercury Steam remastering Samus Returns, and they would not be remastering Prime 2 or Prime 3.
Right.
And like we had Pikmin 1 and 2 compiled, right? Was that before or right after Pikmin 4? It was around that time, regardless.
It was before.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't think there's really any like reason they couldn't do all of them.
Yeah. I was of the mind that like I guess it really does depend on what their time frame is for Metroid Prime 4, like how far into the Switch 2 life cycle also will be released, because I don't think it's releasing like with before, obviously. But Metroid Prime 2 is something that I really wanted to see, because I think that's there are some aspects of that game that I like more than Metroid Prime 1, and I know that I'm one of those weird sickos that probably likes it a little bit more because of certain systems that it has. But yeah, it's been a while since Prime 1, and people were just like, oh, that means they definitely are working on Prime 2 and 3, right? At this point. It's funny to think it might even have just appear on, again, GameCube NSO, if that's what they want to do. They're not necessarily tied to making it an HD remaster. They might have just saved that just for the first one, the most popular and best-selling Metroid Prime in the series. But seeing Samus Returns coming back is definitely something I could see as well, because of how Dread performed. And as you're saying, Brandon, we're in a bit of a lull between Dread and whatever Mercury Steam might be working on. Assuming that they're working on something new, a Super Metroid remake or something. We don't know what their actual like plan is, but you know, it's actually just kind of nice to say that we have all these Metroid games. We're not sure what's gonna appear next.
Yeah. Mercury Steam they're chipping away in Spain. They're doing something with Metroid, undoubtedly. Whether it's in the game or...
I think it's worth noting too that we're at the time of recording, the Game Awards has not happened yet. I think about a bunch of Nintendo's properties, and I think something like Metroid would be relegated to the Game Awards.
Maybe.
Not because I hate to say this, but I think Nintendo would do that because they're like, oh, this isn't a huge announcement. We're gonna put this here. Because Metroid is not like a massive seller for Nintendo traditionally, at least not in Japan. But, you know, Game Awards is a big Western display, so that's a good place to put that.
Yeah, there's not much point discussing this, because they'll be watching this after it's gone live. But I feel like...
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it may have already happened.
It may have. I mean, this will be in the past now, but I feel like Nintendo aren't going to be at the Game Awards, because that felt like a Reggie initiative with Jeff.
Yeah, they miss most of the time, but you never know. So just in case it happens,
just in case,
I'm putting it out into the world.
Daniel, put something else out into the world, Daniel.
Something else out there? Let's see. Man, it's been relatively long since we've had an original Kirby title on, on even a small one. Usually there's smaller mini games that's like Kirby Fighters, Kirby's Dream Buffet. And so I am going to be saying this many times until it actually happens. I think you should just take just the core of Kirby's City Trial and make that into its own game. That's what you need to do, man. You got to take that and make it larger city, more places, things that you can, more players you can have at one time. I wouldn't call it a Kirby like 99 or anything. That's probably far too many to deal with. But this is something that I've always been wanting to see happen, and we've seen interest in the series before. We've seen Smash Run on 3DS was something that came back in a certain way. But yeah, it's not that, I don't know, something else Kirby related. I think Brandon and I recently did a discussion on a podcast about Kirby's Dream Course. Yeah. I think something like that in some small way, like refreshing that, and a new smaller title with Kirby Golf would be fun too. Just in my opinion.
Kirby almost always shows up at the end of a console, like almost always. Whether it's after the next console's released or like right at the very end, it always happens. I think that's just that's just kind of their release cycle. They kind of work a little bit independently of Nintendo. And it would be shocking if there weren't any more Kirby. There always is, whether it's a remaster or a small game or whatever. Yeah, Kirby's coming. That's a certain thing.
I would love a new version of Air Ride, or even just a port of what already exists in the GameCube. But I do kind of want to see them take the 99 route. I want to see what kind of chaos would ensue. Like, you got to take that city trial map and make it 5 or 6 times bigger. But, you know, the way I look at it is, you know, Nintendo has a very different approach to Battle Royale, as we've come to find out. This would be probably the closest to the traditional sense of a Battle Royale, but with that very Nintendo coat of paint on it. And I think that would be very appealing for people.
Kirby absolutely feels like the series that would touch the 99 series next. That just feels like the sort of thing he would do. So if that is the case, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
No. We've had a history of Apple Arcade games losing their exclusivity. So we've had things like Pocket Card Jockey is one of them. We've had Fantasian very recently. It's actually quite a large list of games. There's like Easy Come Easy Golf and so many more. And Sega, the little guys over at Sega, have given Apple quite a few games, like Sonic Dream Team or Puyo Puyo Puzzle Pop or Choo Choo Rocket Universe, which now no longer exists. I would adore for any of those to come to Switch. I know that's not strictly Nintendo, but I think that is a high chance. And Puyo Puyo Puzzle Pop's an interesting one because they released an Apple Arcade in an unfinished state. It's just like chapters. So once that's fully done on Apple Arcade, I think you can just shove that on Switch afterwards. But Sonic Dream Team would probably be the popular choice.
Sonic Dream Team already just feels like it belongs on Nintendo's platforms. Yeah. It just has that vibe. So I think it's just a matter of time. I think that will eventually happen. It would be nice if it happened here towards the end of the Switch life, just to, help buff that out. But even if it doesn't, I think it will still come eventually.
And that's getting Shadow as well. In like a new levels with him. So that kind of feels like the time. It's like a complete version. Just shove it on consoles.
Yeah, we've been having some other titles that are solely for Apple Arcade and whatnot, and that's come over to Switch now, and that's definitely something that it just feels right for that console, as you were saying, because having a complete version is just more appealing in that way as well. And not everyone obviously has an Apple Arcade. I don't have an
and
Apple
even
Arcade.
If you do you play games there? Like I only played it as out of obligation to. But I'd rather not play it on Apple TV or a phone or whatever.
Basically, but yeah, that's just another reason why Sega it just feels like something you should have on this console. So that's towards the end of the life cycle. That's definitely something that I could imagine having on there to play with other people.
Brandon, I can see in your eyes there's another game. It's twinkling in there. What could that game be?
So I've been holding this one back.
Oh,
I've been hanging on to it.
Oh,
it's gonna come as a shock to everybody.
Huh?
There's going to be a sequel to a treasured series.
Huh?
Long forgotten.
Huh? Mario?
From the N64 era. We're finally getting super duper Diddy Kong Racing.
Oh. Is Rare back? Are they back in the driver's seats?
It's going to be a new studio called Where?
Is it spelled like Rare, or is it spelled like where?
Like pants? Like you wear?
Well, it's Rareware. It's just the second half of the of the company.
So they made a new studio for this game. Okay.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, I do think there is room to bring Diddy Kong Racing back in a new way. There was going to be Donkey Kong Racing on the GameCube before the Rare acquisition by Microsoft. And I think there's still room to explore that. No other racing game or kart racer has really done what Diddy Kong Racing did.
No, really.
You have the 3 vehicles. They're distinct. You can mix and match them during races. The single player adventure aspect, I think only like Crash Team Racing has done that. And it's just kind of a shame that its specific gameplay intricacies have never been explored again. And I'd love to see that in a proper modern game with some online features to give it that longevity.
So I think the reason this sounds a little bit silly is because a Donkey Kong game of any kind sounds a bit silly. Because we've gone like 10 years without Tropical Freeze. Having Donkey Kong games and Donkey Kong spin-offs is normal. And like, I think after the Mario movie and probably a Donkey Kong movie coming up and the DK theme park, we are going to get more Donkey Kong games, whether they're platformers or spin-offs like this. So this doesn't sound that unlikely.
Brandon and I did a jokingly fun little advertisement for Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong Racing coming to Switch
NSO.
2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For NSO. But yeah, this is a game, like if you all love Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed, Diddy Kong did it first, driving on land, air, and sea. And I had a lot of fun with this. I remember Brandon and I played the 2-player together. And that's something that I really want more people to experience as well. And I just want to actually experience it, you know, without the lag that we did that one time. I had to redeem myself. But so many cool things and ideas that game did that you don't see in any other car racers, almost any other car racers, that really highlights the creativity that Rare had back then. And just bringing those ideas and refreshing them with a new team with new ideas would be ideal, in my opinion.
And Switch 1's the right home for this, you think?
I don't think
so.
This is something that has to be Switch 2. Like, even if this came out after the Switch 2 launched, I still think this would be a Switch 1 game.
Okay. Like Mario Kart takes the Switch 2 moniker, whereas this is like a legacy one.
Nintendo is obviously not going to want to compete with their own flagship series. But, you know, Diddy Kong Racing, it got a remake once on DS. It's worse than the original game, but it did happen. And like you said, with Donkey Kong coming into focus thanks to the Mario movie and now with the theme park, and, you know, they just released 3 Donkey Kong Land games on NSO, this is a good way to cross-promote.
Yeah. All right, Daniel, I can see in your eye there's a big one. There's a big game that you're holding back on.
Oh, man.
Open your eyes and show us the game.
There's one that I'm still debating in my heart where it's gonna go, honestly, but maybe y'all can help me. Where in the world are they, and when are they gonna announce a remake for Genealogy of the Holy War Fire Emblem?
It was finished 4 years ago. They're just they've got it in a cupboard somewhere.
Oh man, yeah, I believe it's still a matter of how COVID kind of jumbled around the release dates of Engage and Three Hopes and this one as well, because there are signs that it should have been released for Engage as well. But this is a title that a lot of people have been waiting for, because we haven't had like a Fire Emblem Echoes style game since Shadows of Valentia on the 3DS, and this there's a lot of love for this game in Japan specifically. It's been re-released on like 5 different occasions in Japan alone, on Virtual Console, eShops, NSO, the Super Famicom Mini, for example. And we've never had that experience here. We could play it on Japanese, but we don't have access to any kind of English translation for it. So yeah, that's something that I really hope that appears on Switch at some point. But I still wonder, like, we have enough Fire Emblem on Switch 1, so it's like, would you want to start off the Switch 2's library with this instead? I think maybe that's part of the reason why it's been held back for so long, because there's been no announcement thus far. I feel that Nintendo's going to be, you know, go guns blazing as soon as they announce Switch 2, and there's going to be so many like first party titles to be at least announced, not at release, but at least announced at that point. So it's really up in the air as far as like, is this going to be a Switch 1 or Switch 2? I kind of hope it's a Switch 2 title, to be honest. So that kind of defeats the purpose of it being in this discussion. I'm sorry.
But you know, given Fire Emblem's kind of AAA status from a Japan perspective, excuse me, having that game in like year 1 of Switch 2 makes sense. Like, you know, you're gonna push units doing that, and that's what Nintendo's gonna want to do. However, I still think there's a case to be made that maybe perhaps this is something that releases on both.
Maybe.
It's not entirely clear what their strategy is going to be because we still have not seen the reveal of the console. But I'm going to hedge my bets and say you're right. I think that might be a Switch 2 game.
I think Holy War can be a Switch 1 game. And with Switch 2, I think you'd want something as big as Three Houses, like that kind of caliber. Something that goes beyond just Fire Emblem, like something that captures a broader audience. And whether it's like a social side again and like full exploring or whatever, I don't know. But I think I think when you want to debut Fire Emblem on Switch 2, I think you're going to want to do something very fresh rather than something they've done before already. Because this, as great and famous as it is, it's basically just it's exactly what you think Fire Emblem is.
Yeah. Genealogy is they have aspects of which you could call back to Three Houses as well. There's a bit of a hub that you can go to at the beginning of chapters. There's definitely a social aspect because marrying off certain units is actually a part of the game for different reasons. And it's a very much more serious than what you would deal with in Engage. So if Engage was a little too goofy for you and you enjoy like the much more serious tone of a game like Three Houses, then Genealogy is definitely something that will resonate with more people, I believe. So, yeah.
I haven't played Shadows of Valentia myself, but is that more straight remake or does that lean more reimagining?
Bit of both.
That's
like maps are pretty straight.
The maps is probably my biggest gripe because back then it was just like empty maps with not much terrain differences, and they sort of kept that there entirely. But otherwise, the presentation is vastly different. Yeah. Like it's fully voice acted. The art is completely different. They added some new characters. The story was kind of changed and altered because of that, but for the most part, it's remained faithful to the original title.
Yeah, I think the possibility of having a level of reimagining there might make the game kind of what you're saying, John, a fresher experience.
Maybe.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I mean, still, you're going to have the entire like Western audience that has never played it before, so that's always an aspect. But a reimagining of a game as big as Genealogy of the Holy War, I think, would be a bigger deal.
So we've mentioned a lot of games. We haven't actually mentioned what is coming. So just straight from Nintendo, I think there's 4 games currently announced. That's Pokemon Legends ZA, Metroid Prime 4, Xenoblade Chronicles X, and DKC Returns, which is far more than we usually know going into a year. Usually going into a new year, everyone's like, Nintendo, they're out of steam, they've got nothing to announce. And then in January or February, they give us like 8 bangers or something like that. So it's an odd position to be in. And right now, February is the only month that doesn't have a game that we know of in the immediate future. But there's 2 more games that I've got written down. One of them's obvious, so I want to go with the other one. Monster Hunter Stories 3, I think, has a good shot at coming on. Stories 1 was a pretty late 3DS game. Stories 2 was a little while ago at this point. The core team released Rise and Stories 2 around the same time, and we've got Wilds coming up. So I wonder if Stories 3 is kind of meeting that kind of same schedule as they had last time.
It's hard to say, because when it comes to Stories 1, I mean, for those who aren't aware, Monster Hunter works on a very similar kind of cycle to Pokemon, where the games are generations, and then you have games that release in those generations. So Monster Hunter Wilds will be the beginning of Gen 6. Monster Hunter World was the beginning of Gen 5. So Stories 2 is a Gen 5 game. I think if they're going to do a Stories 3, it would be a Gen 6 title, but they would have to establish the world of Wilds first. So I could see Stories 3 being anywhere from 6 months to a year after Wilds comes out. Maybe even longer. But maybe Stories 3 is just breaking the mold and it does something different. So it's still possible.
Can I say, I think we should get on the Switch one. It seems like a good time to get a sequel to Tomadachi Life.
Sure.
We have Metopia, which came from the 3DS, and it was weird that they didn't go with a Tomadachi Life series, right. And at least the port of the original one.
And the meme maker they had in there is like that's perfect for Tomadachi Life.
I would hate to see that meme maker not ever be used again because of how robust it was. It's ridiculous, and you can do so many more silly and ridiculous situations with the new Tomadachi Life using that. It's just such a fun and silly game. I feel like that's something that they would release, just like whatever. It's the end of the Switch series. Just throw something out there, even if it is the port of the original one of some sort. Of course, you're missing out on some of the social aspects, like which it had a lot to do with Street Pass, right? Did that have
Street Pass
functionality? So we're kind of missing out on that sort of thing. If Switch 2 has something that, it has something akin to having, something adjacent to Street Pass, that would be a lot more to the core identity of the original Tomadachi Life. But if not, I'm sure they can kind of, adjust some things and have it so that it's still a very much a full experience on the Switch 1.
One thing I love about Tomodachi Life in comparison to something like Animal Crossing is like Animal Crossing, you're playing a character. But in Tomodachi Life, it's a lot closer to something like The Sims, where the characters just kind of exist and they do. I'd love something on a bigger scale for Tomodachi Life, like a Tomodachi world. Like you have a city, you have a bunch of Miis running around doing stuff, and you just get to kind of play God a little bit. I think Nintendo's missing out by not giving their own take on something like The Sims by applying that to Tomodachi.
Their own take on The Sims, I think, was Doshin the Giant. That's the closest we've come so far.
There we go. Sequel to Doshin the Giant.
There we go.
Coming to Switch 1.
We have gone this whole discussion without mentioning Zelda, the HD remasters. They are some of the most obvious remaining Wii U ports. It could happen. It could happen. I don't think they're holding out to Switch 2 for those necessarily, because what else can you really do other than make them 4K? And if they do have 4K support on Switch 2, there's still no reason they couldn't be on Switch 1. I think they're probably coming.
That's thrown in Nintendo's big pile of save this for later, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Same as like Genealogy: The Holy War and Engage before that. They're waiting for a window where they need something to put out, and then they can do it. And unfortunately, we had to wait the entire console life for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, but I still think it's happening.
Yeah, just like we had with Metroid Prime as well. Like, they were waiting for that one to come out, or for just a good time opportunity to release that one. It just came out of nowhere. So I imagine this also will just kind of just happen at some point or another. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they just also waited for Switch 2 for this one at this point, just because I guess they don't want to release it too close to another Zelda title, being Echoes of Wisdom, even though it's like wholly different mechanically in every possible way. But yeah, it's also worth noting that it's very rare that Nintendo will take like a remake of a game and release it 2 consoles in a row. So Wii U and also on Switch. So I don't know if there's like some unwritten rule they have for doing that or not.
I mean, Xenoblade was Wii, then 3DS, and then Switch.
Oh, it's Xenoblade Chronicles. Yeah, I guess if I'm counting handhelds, that's also true.
And then DK was Wii, and then 3DS, and then Switch.
3DS is the bridge that gaps us all. But yeah, I don't know. Then it's a really big unknown, and that's certainly obviously something I want to see. I love Wind Waker. Twilight Princess is also good, but not as good as Wind Waker in my opinion.
There's also bound to be a gap now with Zelda, because like Tears of the Kingdom was last year, Echoes of Wisdom was this year. So both EPD and Grezzo have just shipped a game relatively recently. So it'd be crazy if Zelda was year one. I can't see them wrangling one together. So something in the meantime, whether it's Hyrule Warriors or whatever, is a surefire thing.
They could always have Tantalus be doing just these ports, because like Wind Waker was in-house Nintendo, Twilight Princess with Tantalus.
Right.
I think Nintendo would be fine just giving Tantalus the keys and just letting them handle that. Because they did Skyward Sword too, didn't they?
Yeah,
they did.
They also did Luigi's Mansion 2 HD.
Oh, right. Okay, I forgot about that.
They've been busy.
Well, I still think it's possible. There is one other Zelda game that I think could happen. I mean, there's been rumblings on the internet. I don't put any stock in that. I just have a personal feeling that this could happen. I think they're going to get Ocarina 3D off the 3DS at some point.
That'd be nice.
Just get that, just in the state it is, just HD up-res, the exact same game, and release that on Nintendo Switch or Switch 2. but I think it's more likely Switch 1 if it happens.
Yeah. I don't think Ocarina of Time, unless you're doing it from scratch, I don't think it's really a new system kind of game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it'd be weird if they remade Ocarina a second time. I'd welcome it if they actually did something to warrant that. But, Ocarina 3D as it is, I think would be a great Switch 1 game.
But I think that's all we want to talk about for now, because we basically mentioned a whole year's worth of games that could be coming. Some of them could happen. Some of them probably won't happen. But I think there's some pretty great guesses in there. I guess we'll see in just a few short months if any of these get announced. But thank you, live audience, for joining us down there. They've been mentioning a bunch of games. I see ARMS 2 in there right now. I see a link between Worlds and Triforce Heroes Double Pack. I'll take it. Lots of cool stuff. And if you want to join them and put some messages in our videos, have you be immortalized forever within GVG, you can. You can join us in the live audience tier on Patreon for just $5 a month. And look forward to a lot more discussions over this period. We've got a whole bunch recorded, so these guys got to see it way in advance. So please consider. And anyway, guys, we will catch you next time. Bye.
Till we meet again.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
See you next time. So long.
Ciao for now.